Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm glad that it was described as positive changes. That's nice. Because change isn't easy, is it? So we've been through quite a remarkable year in our state's history, and what a difference that year has made. And I think about the 4 years that I represented you in the legislature and the types of things that characterize those 4 years, things like rising budget deficits in the billion-plus range year after year, budgets that were done after October 1st and short government shutdowns, counting gimmicks, one-time shenanigans in order to prevent tough decisions, in order to make a budget look like it's balanced, to have highest unemployment in the nation, and also to have the state's credit ratings downgraded on multiple occasions. The things that characterize pre-2011. And as we close this year, I must admit we're even surprised at how quickly things have changed. Some of it from the good fortune of people taking a chance on Michigan again, but much of it because of the dedication and the fortitude of those who are working in the process today, be they in the State House of Representatives, the State Senate, or the governor. And so we saw this year a budget balanced, without any accounting gimmicks whatsoever, actually balanced. That's why it was hard. That's why you felt it, because it was real. In fact, it always worries me when somebody says that they love what we're doing, because I'm afraid that you're not paying close enough attention. Because if we're honest, there's something in every single budget that each of us would rather not touch, that we'd kind of like to protect, and yet it doesn't change the reality that we face. It doesn't change the math. One thing I'll say about the governor, he has a great respect for math. And so at the end of the day, these two columns must equal each other if we're to comply with our Constitution. And so we saw a structurally balanced budget, reforms and reductions in spending to the tune of about $1.4 billion. We saw it done before June 1st. I was 5 years old the last time we saw a budget passed before June 1st. I know some of you are saying, well, that wasn't that long ago. But it was quite a while ago. Toward the end of Governor Milliken's time in office, the last time that had happened. And this happened with a bunch of rookies at the helm. And it's been a pretty remarkable sight to see folks that come in, the true citizen legislators coming in with a heart toward fixing these things that other so-called professionals hadn't been able to fix for so long. But beyond that, we also saw the outlook for Michigan changed. We saw our bond rating outlook from Fitch, one of the three main credit rating agencies, change Michigan to positive after multiple downgrades in the past. We saw our debt, which was nudging $100 billion when you consider our unfunded retiree obligations, reduced by billions. If you add it all, I haven't gone through and added up all the different reforms, probably $10 billion in debt reduction. Now contrast this to what you see happening around the rest of the nation or with our federal government. Did you know it's been 1,000 days since the United States Senate has been able to pass a budget? And yet Michigan is an example, leading the nation today with fiscal restraint and responsibility, and actually facing the music, facing the harsh reality that this recession had brought upon us. But at the same time, it's easy to get caught up on this idea like we're supposed to be last because we've been last for a while. So we have a structurally balanced budget. We went from a $1.4 billion deficit to a $400 million surplus. We have gone from the worst unemployment in the nation, moved up 10 spots already. We've got a long way to go. But if we really want to fix things going forward, what do we need? We need a growing economy. We need jobs. Now, 2011 was exciting in that we had an economy that created 80,000 new private sector jobs. It's been a long time since Michigan has experienced that type of growth. We saw a substantial change in our unemployment rate as a result. But long term, if we want a healthy state, we've got to have a growing economy. Now, if we want jobs, it makes sense. We understand, where do our jobs come from? Now, I know that everybody's for jobs. I'm a Republican. Republicans are for jobs. I've seen it in all the literature. I've seen commercials say Democrats are for jobs. In fact, I think even communists are for jobs. Okay, so everybody's for jobs. Let's just go ahead and set that baseline. Everybody's for them, but if you want more, where do they come from? Let's look in Michigan. Where do our jobs in Michigan come from? Now, if we look at two different time periods in Michigan's history, two extremely different time periods in Michigan's history, one of which being the 1990s, the other being the 2000s. Two different decades. Now I'm going to use statistics from the Edward Lowe Foundation. Anybody know who Edward Lowe was? Michigan entrepreneur, the inventor of kitty litter. Okay, that's part of Michigan's heritage. Cass County, Edward Lowe. They make Slinkies here too, by the way. But Edward Lowe, the inventor of kitty litter, left behind the Edward Lowe Foundation, which keeps economic statistics county by county and state by state. And if you broadly characterize jobs into three different categories, you'll see where Michigan's jobs come from. Category number one, startups, startup companies. Brand new companies, somebody has an idea for a job or take a chance to start a company, start a business, and jobs results. So that's one category of jobs. Now we want to get a net number, so we subtract out the companies that went out of business. Okay, so that's one category. Second category is expansion of jobs, of companies that are already here. So you got a company that's already here and they just got bigger. To get a net number, we subtract out the ones from companies that got smaller. Third category, relocations. So relocations into Michigan minus relocations out of Michigan. Three categories. Where do our jobs come from? If you look at the 1990s and the 2000s, the 90s, time of great economic expansion in Michigan. Higher per capita income than the rest of the nation. Lower unemployment most years than the rest of the nation. In the 2000s, we had our per capita income fall substantially in this state, where we went from literally a rich state to a poor state by that measure, and the highest unemployment in the nation. Two very different time periods in our history. Now, all my Republicans and my Republican friends in the audience are going to say, well, yeah, it's naturally because you had John Ingor in the 90s and Jennifer Granholm in the 2000s, and my Democrat friends say, no, that's not right. That's because you had Bill Clinton in the 90s and George Bush in the 2000s. Okay, but let's just assume that there's plenty of credit and blame to go around to everybody and just set all that nonsense aside. And just agree that in the 90s, we had economic expansion. In the 2000s, we had economic contraction. In the 90s, we had some job growth from startups. We had a net loss in jobs from relocations. The majority of the job growth in the 90s came from the expansion of companies that were here the whole time. In the 2000s, we had net losses in two categories, startups and relocations. Our only positive job growth came from the expansion of companies that were here all along. And yet, we had an economic development strategy that was built around the notion of how do we convince somebody to come in here to Michigan and save us? How can we put together some sort of an economic development incentive package to convince somebody from out there around the world to come in here to Michigan and give us some jobs, as opposed to trying to come up with a system that builds around the people that are already here. And so that's a strategy that is now employed. It's called economic gardening. That you grow your jobs from the ones that are already here. Now, why did this strategy in the past, started under English, supercharged under Granholm, to pay companies to come in? The idea is we give them enough money, call it a tax credit. That's just so that people don't get mad, but it's we're writing people a check. So we say to some company, if you'll come in here and make jobs, we'll write you a check for millions of dollars. And if you're well connected enough, you can get a bunch of these. And who pays for that? The ones that were here the whole time. Now, it's no wonder that this strategy failed, and I think it's fair to say it was a spectacular failure. After 15 years and billions of dollars, yes, billions of dollars in that type of activity, that we saw our numbers all go in the wrong direction. But what if you were to apply this strategy to your company? So think about where you work. Think about your business. And what if you were to say to your most loyal customer, the one who's been with you for a long time, I really appreciate your business. I do. But here's the thing. I need new customers. So I'm going to have to raise your prices so I can give a sale price to a new customer coming in. Do you think you'd stay in business long with that strategy? That was Michigan's economic development strategy for 15 years. And it didn't work. And so what we're doing instead, what we have done instead, and what is in place right now because of the work that was done by this legislature, this House of Representatives, and this Senate, is we have eliminated the game of picking winners and losers between industries, types of companies, and we said, you know what, we're going to eliminate the double taxation on the small companies. LLCs, S corporations, partnerships, sole proprietors, the ones who had to pay a business tax and the personal income tax on all their business income, taxed them twice. We said no more taxing twice on the real job creators in Michigan. Once is enough. And for the bigger companies that are left, the C corporations whose income does not pass through directly to anybody's tax return, here's their tax system. Federal taxable income apportioned to Michigan activity times 6%. The end. The simplest corporate tax code in the nation, maybe in the world. People have been talking about doing this for years. The idea of a simple, spread, fair system where you eliminate playing favorites in order to lower the rate for everybody. And it's remarkable how people are responding. Because what we don't need right now to convince those to come from the outside at the expense of the ones on the inside. We need those who are making our communities work and have been making them work all this time to feel good about taking a chance on Michigan again. And you can feel it wherever you're at around the state right now. It's just amazing how the governor gave one example in the state of the state, and that was a grocery store in Alpena. The good news is, it was really hard to decide from all the good news stories that were coming at us which one to pick. We picked one in Alpena because we wanted to make sure everybody knew that this stuff is even working in Alpena. It's not just in big cities. It's not just something for Southeast Michigan. It's not just Grand Rapids. But every corner of the state, people are starting to take a chance on us again. And that's what it's going to take. But ultimately, we know that as much as we can do to create an environment that's conducive for job growth and for people to make a life here, that it will be decisions made by individuals that lead our state from where it's at today to where it can be in the future. We believe that our best days are in front of us, that we're not longing for the past. The past was great, and we're celebrating even today as Michigan celebrates its 175th anniversary to admittance to statehood. That our best days are in front of us. But it would be a mistake if we took the attitude that if only we had a better president and if only we had a better Congress, that they would make a better America. And if we had a better America, we'd have a better state. If we had a better state, we'd have better communities. And if we had better communities, we'd have better families. If we had better families, we'd have better individuals. But we know here in Portland that's not how it works. In fact, that's the opposite of how it works. It's strong people that make strong families. And strong families that build strong communities. And strong communities that make strong states. And strong states that make a strong America. And a strong America that makes a strong world. But it all starts with the individual. So there's tough work, hard work being done right now to create an environment that's conducive to job growth. Reform in the tax system, trying to get the regulatory environment under control. You know, we've gotten rid of 400 regulations already. I won't be satisfied till we're in the thousands, but we got a good jump on it. Every day doing what we can to make this place operate better so people have the best shot of success. But what we need on top of that are people to take an interest in the success of other people. And so my challenge to you is today is to look around you, whether it's within your family or with the people that you work with, people that you work for, people that you work with, people that work for you. How much do you know about what they want to do in the future? How much do you know about what they want their next step to be? And I want to challenge you to take a personal interest in helping them get there. It's this idea, broadly I'll call it mentorship. And I don't care where you're at in your life spectrum, that you're never too old to be mentored, never too young to mentor somebody else. Every single important step I've taken in my life, it's because somebody else took a personal interest in my success and gave me a shot to do something I wasn't necessarily qualified to do on paper. And having communities full of people taking that type of an interest in the people around them is going to make a huge, huge difference. Now I want to close with a story. I apologize if you've heard this before. It's one of my favorites. I was speaking down in Jackson, talking about a bridge. Maybe you've heard about it. It was in the newspaper that I was going to be there. And so these two people, they set up this little makeshift booth, and on the booth there was a sign, and the sign said, "Sign your Recall Rick Snyder petition here." And so as I walked by, a lady with a clipboard said, "Sir, would you like to sign a petition to recall Rick Snyder?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." So I walked by, and then I thought, well, she obviously didn't recognize me. So I went back and I said, "I wonder if you guys have thought this through. Do you know what would happen if you're successful?" And the guy next to her says, "Yeah, we'd throw that bum out of office. That's what would happen." I said, "Well, yeah, sure, you could remove the governor if you were successful, but then what? What's the next step? Do you realize what the next step is? Because then the lieutenant governor becomes governor." And I wondered if, do you like him better or something? Do you think he lines up more with your policies? Do you even know who he is? And the guy had an answer for that. He said, "Well, he couldn't be any worse, I know that." I figure that's going to be my next campaign slogan. Vote Brian Calley, you couldn't be any worse. In fact, I went back in and I told the governor the next day, I said, "Sorry, Rick, the people want me. I stand out there in the rain collecting signatures just to get me." No, but I said to him, "Well, how do you know that he's not worse?" I said, "Listen, I know the lieutenant governor. All right, I know him so well. I know how he thinks. And I got to tell you, if you don't like Rick Snyder, you would not like him either." Oh, by the way, I'm Brian Calley, Lieutenant Governor. It's nice to meet you. I just went right in after that. I figured that the productive end of the conversation is probably over at that point. You know, when you see that type of reaction, it's a passionate reaction because change is hard. That's a measurement where we know that it's real, that it's true. That this isn't reform and name only, that this is the real deal. So trying to create a Michigan that is set up better for that next generation. We take ownership of the problems that we all own, us adults, the ones that have built up in our time, and say that it's not good enough that we leave this type of debt on the next generation. And so it's hard work. I certainly appreciate the response so far from people on every corner of the state. I'm bullish on Michigan. I expect that our best days are in front of us. I expect great things from this state. And I expect great things from the community of Portland. You know, it's not just because I have such a short ride home tonight that I appreciate being here. Because you guys have been friends and supporters right there from the beginning. And I appreciate that especially. And I know it's kind of, think about it, like if you live in Portland area, your city council member is my brother, and county commissioner is my wife. But it's a family that really does have a heart for community service, and the type of confidence that you've placed in me over these years is something I'll never forget. That first time when I ran, I thought, who's gonna vote for a 25-year-old to be a county commissioner? The city of Portland and Danby Township and Sepulveda Township took a chance on me. And so I appreciate that. That's why it's such a pleasure to come back here today. I remember when I went to this banquet in 2008, there were 30 people here. And so it's grown. It's grown like the community is growing in strength right now. And it's really heartening to see. So for your part in that, I'll say, from myself, from the governor, from the state, thank you so much.